I'm Cody Matushik.
And I'm Rod Montague, and we are the movie reviewers. This is a mini review, and we are doing a review of...
Tropic Thunder.
And what the heck is a Tropic Thunder?
It's a huge mashup, basically starring Jack Black, Ben Stiller, and Robert Downey Jr., who play actors portraying a war movie. Actors in a war movie.
Or so they think.
Or so they think.
Okay, only they find out that the war movie is less fiction than it is...
All because the director said he wanted to get real reactions.
Yes, he did. So the movie is really got a real compilation of great talents, okay, of people. Who are the talents in this film?
Well, I've already named 3 of them.
Okay.
And then there's also Jay Bruchanel, Steve Coogan.
Remember Danny McBride?
Danny McBride.
Bill Hader.
Bill
Bill Hader's in this. And also, if you remember the old grizzled guy.
Yep.
Nick Nolte.
Nick Nolte.
Right? Now, okay.
And Tom Cruise.
Okay. Oh, yes. There is always the Cruise. We'll get to him in a second. We'll get to the guy who almost blew up his career. Okay. So, what basically is... So, the basic premise is that you have actors who are basically trying to engage in method acting for this comedy in the middle of a kind of Vietnam War picture, but in fact start getting caught up in actual creation of their own actual war. And the film has a conversation about acting, ego. Certainly it's a commentary on the film industry and how seriously it takes itself and how seriously egotistical actors are.
I'm sorry, can we cut?
What is going on here?
Hey, I'm about to jump out this helicopter like Wesley Snipes.
I'm doing the scene right now.
What scene? The scene is about emotionality. Where is it?
And I think the actors here are also having fun at their own expense, too. I think it's fair to say. Right?
Oh, definitely, especially Robert Downey Jr.
And this was directed by...
Ben Stiller.
Directed by Ben Stiller. It had multiple screenwriters, but including Ben Stiller was one of them. Justin Theroux was another. And the film really, I would say, works as both... It has a mixture of a little bit of satire and almost slapstick comedy.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think that's something that we have to really keep in mind is that, while the actors, for example, are playing in these jungle scenes thinking, who have blanks and whatever, blanks in their guns and whatever, okay? And what happens essentially is that they're actually dropped in an actual jungle and they end up basically in combat situation with the Golden Triangle, which was in the Golden Triangle, which is near the borders of Laos, Myanmar, which was Burma, and Thailand. Okay, and that was actually the CIA term because a lot of heroin went through there.
Yes.
Right. So they are actually stumbling into this major, violent region of criminality as they're going around blowing things up.
Yes, and basically when they get there, they lose a cast member right off the bat.
Right, they do. And so they end up having to do their almost journey. It actually has a little humor of the Heart of Darkness quality to it as they're going through this journey of trying to find the person. And the characters are kind of becoming aware of who they are a little bit. So you look at somebody like Jack Black, who kind of becomes more, I think it's more fair to say he becomes more and more outrageous.
True story.
Or extreme.
It's definitely extreme.
Because he seems to become more and more truthful to the guerrilla style of life and warfare and takes it to this extreme level, correct?
Yes.
Okay. One thing we should talk about with these characters is that each one kind of plays a different Hollywood type. So you get the Hollywood wannabe great who's never been on the verge of greatness but wants to be Ben Stiller, which I think is certainly a kind of a reference to his own career a little bit. But wants to be taken seriously. Then you get the serious great actor who can do anything, who can do any great performance, in Robert Downey Jr., who gives sage advice. Now he plays a character who's actually supposed to be African American.
Yes.
Okay. But he's going so method that he actually puts tar and other things on his face to actually darken his skin. This was a real risk, I think, on the part of the filmmakers because we've seen this type of thing before. It's always blown up in the face of white filmmakers to try to create kind of comedic characters that are trying to have fun with this kind of material. Why does this work? Let's talk about this. Does this character work doing blackface. Okay. Yeah, I know you're like, that's like how I got to answer that. Like, how do I answer
that? Feels like a loaded question, but honestly,
Let's talk about it.
I believe it works because he.
Why do you think it works?
Because in this movie, Robert Downey Jr. is playing this veteran who's played so many different roles.
Right.
He wanted to challenge himself, so he said, "Let me do something I've never done before."
Right. And so how is the audience supposed to take the blackface element? Because he's also not simply doing blackface in terms of his skin color. It's also in terms of trying to create an African American manner and form of speech. Is that fair enough to say?
Oh yeah, you can definitely tell how he messes with his dialect when he's talking.
Right. So there's a dialect. There's a dialectical element within his speech that is that we're meant to perceive and interpret as an African American dialect. Okay. One thing, for example, he lowers his voice.
Yep.
The rapidity of his speech.
Yes.
So you see that. Okay.
What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people?
For myself, I saw it as an outrageous moment. Like,
okay,
it's
because there's a lot of ways you can go with that. There's a lot of outrageous moments in film. They can cause rage, or they can just be absurd. So how is the audience meant to interpret that character?
I feel absurd.
Okay. What makes it absurd as opposed to just painful?
It's because of his interactions with the other characters, how he's talking. He's trying to be this father-like figure for these other actors.
Okay.
And so some of the things he says is over the top.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't step there. I know it ain't good.
It ain't good. So here's the thing, okay? Because that's the thing we want to talk about. Because this is one of the big aspects of this film, and it's been widely accepted and embraced and whatever. But let's take a little more critical look at it, okay? In terms of not criticizing, but examining it, okay? What role does ethnicity play in performance? Because that's the question that the film is essentially asking.
Right.
Okay. So how do we look at it, and how are we meant to think about it? In this case, from the standpoint of this movie, not in general, but the standpoint from this film. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm trying to think of how to break that down.
Well, there's a couple of ways to think about it, I think. For one thing, is ethnicity simply an actor's tool? That's one of the ways to think about it. Is it simply another actor's tool?
Right.
Okay? Because tradition has been for people who were white for years, okay? You could be Italian, you could be Jewish, you could be Irish, Scottish. Nobody cared.
Right.
Nobody gave a damn what you were, right? So, but when you go into being a character that is identified as a racial other, is there a difference in that moment? Has something changed in terms of how we should view that thing? Should we view it as an acting trope or tool?
I think that, honestly, you could view it as an acting trope.
Okay. Well, that's his attitude.
It is.
Because it's not well received initially. If you
Right.
remember the film. The film, it's not well received. Now, it's also what's interesting about that film, and this is the awareness of the film. The film has different actors receiving his casting in this character differently.
Yes.
Okay? You actually do have a black character.
Yes.
In this film, who really receives it differently, right?
Yes.
And is that Orlando Jones? Who is it?
Brandon Jackson.
Brandon Jackson. Who's okay? So you have his response, which is really like
offended
and just finding but he also critiques the acting choice.
Yes.
Says it's not a good acting performance. I mean, he doesn't say that overtly, but there's an implication there that it will be a bad acting choice.
Hell yeah! Ha! That's how we all talk. We all talk like this, huh? Yes, huh? Yeah, get some crawfish and some ribs, ha! Yeah! You're Australian! Be Australian! Excuse me, Kangaroo Jack.
Choice. That you can't do the part.
Right.
You don't have the requisite knowledge or experience of this group of people to do the part successfully. You know? And that may be the difference between ethnicity and race in terms of performance. You know? Because if you perceive somebody to be racially different, there are aspects of that performance that can you replicate on screen. And the film is asking this question. I think it's a really interesting question to ask. And now, of course, I guess one of the things a person's going to ask me or say, well, somebody who is black, what do you think about it? I absolutely loved it. I'll tell you that right now, and I'll tell you why. Because one, I did minor acting in college. I was acting for some years, and I understood what he was trying to achieve. Because here's the thing: Downey Jr. is not trying to play a black person.
Not at all.
That's the difference. This is not somebody actually trying to change his ethnicity. This is the portrayal of an actor trying to portray somebody who's racially different and failing.
Because he wanted a challenge.
He wanted the challenge. The character has to fail. If he took it... So, in other words, if Robert Downey Jr. playing this part tried to play it straight-laced, serious, it could come off particularly offensive and disastrous. And certainly not funny. But he's not playing that character. He's not trying to play a black character.
Nope.
He's trying to play a white actor who's trying to be so method. And the more he tries to be more method, the more absurd and embarrassing and hilarious it is. And that's why it's a marvelous performance. And he was, of course, well respected, and it was one of the highlights of his performance. And I believe it was also, he was nominated for an Oscar.
Yes, he was.
He was nominated for an Oscar for that performance. And while I don't know if that's a really Oscar-worthy performance, I can't say that. I will say that I thought playing that character, I guess, white actor trying to play a black character and not succeeding, was really a lot of fun. It was a really enjoyable experience to get into. And it makes everything he says so much funny. What you mean, you people? What you mean, you people? So it's like, there's just these great moments because, again, we're not viewing him as a black person. The actor, Robert Downey Jr., is trying to play a white actor who's so deep up his own ass that he basically thinks he can play anything and it will all be great.
Yes.
And the film calls him out on it like, no, it's not. You know what I'm saying? If the film doesn't call him out on it, then it's less funny.
Right.
But the film routinely calls him out on it. But he's still so far up his own ass, he doesn't even realize it. He's not even self-aware that the movie's calling him out. And I think that's fantastic. I think that's absolutely marvelous and so funny. It's a terrific job. Very risky by Ben Stiller, but it pays off with dividends. So I got to give it to Robert Downey Jr. and to Ben Stiller for really creating what I think is one of the funniest characters.
Oh yeah,
in
definitely.
recent memory. So I personally loved it. I mean, it was, I mean, Kirk's like, what do you mean, you people? And Alpha's like, what do you mean, you people? Huh? I mean, again, the guy. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of lack of self-awareness. That's the other thing. The film never pokes fun at itself. The characters never wink like a fourth wall jokes or anything like that.
Nope.
Thank God, because that could have been so easy to do, and it would have been a disaster. It would have been a freaking disaster. But they are so up their own ass. They just think they are so great. They're so smart. Everything's going to work out. I mean, you just have these...
Except for Ben Stiller's character.
Okay, well, I'll let you talk about... What's that? What do you mean?
Ben Stiller is trying to get over the stigma because he played a full retard in his previous role.
Now, let's put that in context. That term, in context, is the term used in the film.
Yes.
And again, what the film does to this extent, basically he was meant to try to play somebody mentally disabled.
Whose name was Simple Jack.
Simple Jack. And he thought it was going to be his I Am Sam kind of moment where he was going to play this mentally disabled person. He was going to play it so great he was going to get an Academy Award. And basically, what Robert Downey Jr. does in that piece is set him straight that you have to play the character real with nuance, or you end up playing a caricature, which is true in acting. In acting, if you don't give nuanced performance, then it ends up being a caricature. Or, to use the term as they say in the film, you go...
Full retard.
You go full retard. And he says you never go full retard. And because then you're playing a caricature. And I think, and again, we're analyzing looking at the film, but in context it's very funny.
Yes.
And how it's done. But it's underlying a serious point about acting, which I really appreciate, which is that you can never... Because he himself is playing almost a stereotype character telling an actor to not play a stereotype character.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
What do you mean?
Check it out. Dustin Hoffman, Rain Man, look retarded, act retarded, not retarded. Count two picks, cheated cards. Autistic, show, not retarded. You got Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump. Slow, yes, retarded maybe, braces on his legs, but he charmed the pants off next to him and won a ping pong competition. That ain't retarded. He was a goddamn war hero. Right. You know any retarded war heroes? You went full retard, man. Never go full retard. You don't buy that? Ask Sean Penn, 2001, I Am Sam. Remember? Went full retard. Went home empty-handed.
Yep.
And again, that sort of circular humor really works here. And so I think a film really has a lot to say about acting and performance and how you are perceived by the outside world. So I really appreciated that section. Not only is it an incredibly funny line, it is actually insightful to good and bad performances and why somebody who's acting their ass off will not get any nominations, not get any notice. It's like, but I did my best acting. No, you did your best overacting. You reduced the character into a stereotype, into something superficial, and the film notes that, makes a point about that. You know, and the film is again absurd. It has a lot of slapstick moments, and I would say some questionable, vulgar humor.
Yes.
Okay, or quite a bit of vulgar humor, to be fair.
Quite a bit.
I still have a little bit of an issue now. I mean, we've gone to some positives. The film's comedically funny. It's got some sharp dialogue, a lot of internal humor that really works. Are there any downsides? Are there any challenges in this film? Problems, you would say? What would you say about that?
Yes.
Okay.
I had a problem with Jack Black's character.
Okay, talk about that. Okay.
Because basically he plays this over-the-top druggie.
Well, he's playing who? Who is he really playing? We both know who he's playing.
That I'm not sure. Dennis Hopper?
There's a Dennis Hopper. Clearly there's a Dennis Hopper in it. I'm just saying.
No,
there's a
I
Dennis
see
Hopper.
That.
It's a combination Dennis Hopper, Blue Velvet, and Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to be in rehab.
Yes.
The character's supposed to be freaking rehab.
And here he is on the...
in the middle of a heroin-producing country.
Yep.
I mean, geez. I mean, it's like... and he just gets more and more insane, believing this is where he belongs.
Yep.
He thinks he belongs here. I mean, he's nuts. I mean, that character is absolutely, positively out of his friggin' mind.
Yes.
Okay? And it's certain... I mean, I'm going to just give you one... I had to get this line because I was looking for it. Okay? They tie him to a tree. Remember this?
Oh, yes.
They tie him to a tree. And what does he say? You remember?
That I can.
He tries to convince the guy to do it, or he'll go down on him.
Oh, yes, that's right.
He says, I'll go down. Basically, he says, I'll go down on you. He says, no, man, I'm straight. Basically, he says it in a more vulgar way. We're cleaning it up for this. So we'll get
yes.
We don't be demonetized. So he says, he says, no, I'm heterosexual. He says, so he starts talking about how he'll go down on him and the ways he'll go down on him and how. But he talks about it as like he's a drug addict, like he's gonna hit a pipe.
Yep.
He's gonna use the guy's appendage or member as a pipe. I mean, that scene is so uncomfortable, but also incredibly funny.
Yes.
I mean, it's just... and the characters actually, if I remember correctly, you have to remind me, was one of the guys gay?
I think so.
Yeah, I think the black guy's gay.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's another aspect to it. Now, so... okay, so you think he's what? He's a little too over the top, maybe?
A little over the top at parts. I'm just thinking of the water buffalo scene.
Remember we talked about vulgarity, guys? Yeah.
That's something I didn't need to say.
Yeah, there's a little too much. This is when Ben Stiller doesn't know how to pull back. So there's problems with that. Where I think it's a problem in the script because I think it shows a lack of confidence in his own script.
Yeah.
I think he says we have to go wildly over top here to get a laugh. And I don't think he has to do that. I think 3/4 of this script is really well done in terms of dialogue, performance, character development, or characterization. It's not really character development, it's characterization. And I think that's all very well done. Here's where my big problem is, and it's a problem. It's a real problem with this film. This film does not give a good portrayal of Asian people.
No, not at all.
I really had a problem with that. I mean, you have to let Asian people be in on the joke, and the film does not allow that. The film, I think, is piss poor in that. I think it stereotypes Asian people. I think it really leaves them in a lurch. It does not really allow them in on the humor. It's like it's the Americans' humor, and you don't get to play.
Yep.
And I really, because most of those Asian people in the film are violent, and and
they're all drugged out.
And they're many of them drugged out. The kid isn't.
No, the kid isn't.
No, but I'm saying but they're all part of criminal enterprise, even the child.
Yep.
So they're either criminals, or they're on drugs, or they're trying to commit violent murder. And I really had an issue with that because I didn't think it was necessary. I didn't. What point do the Asian actors in that movie play?
There isn't any.
They play none, at least in my view. I don't.
They're very one-dimensional.
They're very one-dimensional. They don't add anything to the humor.
Nope.
I did not think any of their scenes with Stiller work.
Nope.
At all. I mean, the dialogue is painful to me.
Oh, it is.
I mean, not just borderline painful. Pain in the ass. Painful. Polyps in the ass. Pain. I thought they were dreadful and inexcusable. And again, this is where I get the script becomes very uneven. You do something masterful like the full retard sketch. You do something masterful like you do the blackface sketch. You do something masterful like the ending.
Yep.
Which I will not spoil. I don't think we should spoil it.
Nope.
I'm not
going to touch it.
You think Tom Cruise is crazy? In this movie, this is his crazy as a great actor. It is vulgar, it is awful, and it is perfect.
It is.
He is a douchebag, an a-hole. It is fantastic. It is the 6 best minutes of comedy I've seen in the last half century. It is fantastic. It is disgusting. It's awful. It's vulgar. It's full of terrible curse words. And it's marvelous. I don't know how else to say. I mean,
no, that's perfect, honestly.
I mean, I did not expect it. Because it's Tom Cruise, good guy, all American, smile, that kind of crap.
Yep.
Opposite here. And Matthew McConaughey plays his straight man.
Yep.
Perfectly. Matthew McConaughey, his face, he just does this moment. Everybody else is like in the room. Yeah. Like, Tom Cruise is saying the most whacked out crap, and he's just, everybody in his room was like, so Cruise, what are you saying? Like, and Matthew McConaughey's like, the hell's wrong with all you people? It's fantastic, so much fun. Check it out. Tropic Thunder. We don't do ratings here like 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. We don't do any of that. It is must see, should see if you're bored, and God please slaughter it in its bed while it's sleeping so it never exists again. What's your view of it?
I'm gonna say watch if you're bored, just because it is so vulgar. A lot of people will get offended by it.
And offended by, I think, the right things too. There's offensiveness, I think, where it's just not to people's taste, but there's also offensiveness where I think it's about poor taste.
Yes.
And I think, and to be honest with you, this film has some questionable content in terms of taste. I'm going to give it a marginal should see, because I think there's enough there. I think like 65% is gold, and I think 20% of it's brass, and I think the rest of it's lead. But the 65 gold and brass is pretty damn good gold and brass to watch. I walked out with quoting films. I always know it's a good comedy if I'm quoting the lines.
Yes.
That's why I still quote the Marx Brothers. All these years later,
Yep.
I watch the Marx Brothers, I quote them like I know my name. I quote Mel Brooks. You quote Mel Brooks. You know, he does some of the most classic lines. I think great comedies have great classic moments that you replicate within dialogue or water cooler discussion. So, I'm on the fence. I totally see where you're coming from, and I'm right there with you, but I think it's just enough to get it to a should see, the lowest possible level of should see. So like it should be right here where you have see if you're bored, but right there because I think there's just some moments that I think are so worth watching. Even a couple of the vulgar moments, I think a couple of them are worth watching. But you have to have a strong appetite for vulgarity, language, sexual innuendo, and again, I don't mind any of those things, but they are grating if they don't work. And there are a couple of moments where I think the vulgarity, the racial stereotyping, and the cursing doesn't work. So I would say a marginal see if you should see. Okay. Well, guys, thank you very much. We do reviews regularly, so please check back with us, and we are very glad and grateful to have us. Please subscribe too. Okay. I'm Rod Monte.
I'm Cody Matushik.
And we are the Movie Reviewers. Take care.